Welcome to this 10-minute Expert Insight video podcast produced by ENEA. I'm Charlie Ashton with 21K Consulting. And in this series of podcasts, we're talking to industry experts about trends and challenges in IoT, SD-WAN, edge compute, and network virtualization. For our conversation today, I'm delighted to welcome Nico Walters, Global Innovation and Information Manager at CMC Networks, which is a global telecommunications carrier headquartered in South Africa. So Nico, before we start talking about the main topics for this podcast, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about CMC Networks?
Yeah, sure. So hi, Charlie. Hi, everyone. I'm Nico Walters. As I said, Head Up Innovation and Information here at CMC Networks. Been with the company for over 14 years, specializing in MPLS, IP transit, recently SD-WAN and cloud. CMC is a wholesale carrier. We have over 100 POPs globally. And as I said, it underpins our MPLS network and a very large global IP network as well.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for the introduction. So I believe it was in 2018 that you launched your SD-WAN service named CMC Rapid Adaptive Network, or CRAN. So what kind of customers have adopted this solution, and what kind of business benefits are they achieving from it?
Okay, well, so we put together our CRAN product suite, or we evolved it into an ecosystem. CRAN SD-WAN is sort of the key focus point of this ecosystem. It's a tunnel-free SD-WAN, which is very unique, and it provides customers with more bandwidth, security, and scale. Mm-hmm. And this is compared to your legacy SD-WANs. So the kind of customers that have gone and adopted this solution have generally been enterprises that have struggled with their legacy networks, whether it's frame relay, believe it or not, or MPLS. Or what we've seen now is the kind of customers that are pushing their digital transformation journeys to the forefront of their business, where cloud adoption is that main focus. Mm. So what they found is they found cost saving, agility. I believe rapid deployment is one of the main ones, and inflexibility. It definitely makes your solutions a lot more, let's say, agile and sort of future-proof when we move to CRAN SD-WAN.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So as you were exploring your architecture options for your SD-WAN offering, what were the trade-offs that you looked at between vertically oriented products on one side as opposed to more open layered solutions, possibly based on universal CPE platforms?
Well, the main thing is SD-WANs in general are customized solutions. Mm-hmm. So the approach of one size fits all, which we found with vertical oriented products, it just doesn't necessarily work all the time. And then I said that the customization that we get from layered solutions, obviously we do. So the trade-off here is the implementation of complex architecture versus sort of something that's a bit more simple and I won't say straightforward, but just simpler. I think the other sort of notable trade-offs were, we found were flexibility, and then also the ability for customers to adapt and adopt new technologies. Okay. With your layered solutions, you're able to pull out certain sort of layers from the stack and replace them as new technologies emerge. Where we find your vertical oriented products, they're kind of more stagnant, catering for a larger deployment base or customer base. So those are the things I could think of offhand.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you mentioned service function chaining. What value does this bring to your customers in the operation of their networks?
Well, service chaining is an exceptionally interesting topic, from various angles. In the sort of virtualization space back in the day with servers, we went that way quite, and we found, we found some great efficiencies adopting virtualization technologies. When we start looking at the telco space and carrier space, we've got the same efficiencies there as well. So I think one of the main ones I could pull out was security. Was definitely one of the values. With service function chaining, you can kind of control the packet flow a lot more than when you have appliances all over the place. So you can kind of force a packet from one device or one VNF to the other. And I think that ability is definitely something that customers find value in when we start looking, not necessarily just in the telco clouds and the hyperscale clouds, but now pushing it to an edge solution as well.
Yeah. So on your side, how does service chaining help you in terms of the efficiency of your operation?
Well, when you kind of wrap your head around service chaining, you take the NAV discussion and how you can leverage that. So from a CMC point of view, you look at our data centers and you're sitting with tons of appliances and cables and everything's messy. So when you start collapsing that into virtual infrastructure, relying on VNFs, and then you start service chaining certain types of VNFs together, you get the efficiency from power, from automation, orchestration, all of these things kind of put together, underpinned with service chains, obviously. But I think it allows our company to run a lot more efficiently and leaner than we've done in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, what effect has implementing this next generation SD-WAN architecture had on your business growth at CMC?
So if we take a step back and look at the discussion around SD-WAN adoption in general, it's because of the decline of sort of MPLS networks in favor of SD-WAN underpinned with your internet services, sort of DIAs and broadband. So we know that. In our territories, Africa and the Middle East, that adoption has been a lot slower than say in your region or in Europe. So I think we're kind of at a hockey stick point in time, at least in our territory now, where I've seen RFP after RFP, enterprise after enterprise now going and saying, well, we need to do this, we want to do this. And now with AWS just launching last week or a few weeks ago, Azure's been here, Google's coming. I think we're literally at that brink where the adoption is going to be not just a sort of a foot in the water, but like a full-on deployment. So with that in the background, I think our C-RAN SD-WAN offering has helped us offset this decline. CMC at its heart has been a very large-scale MPLS provider, so this definitely has helped offset this. And then if you look at the growth portion, I think it's going to contribute to a large portion of our growth this fiscal year and obviously in the years to come. It is definitely something that we took very seriously. And honestly, we've seen growth and we're targeting a large portion of our income, coming from our SD-WAN services and our SDN services as well.
Yeah. So, I believe that there's over 50 vendors now that are delivering different types of solutions for SD-WAN. So from your experience, what advice would you have for vendors in terms of how to stand out from the crowd and what problems to focus on?
Well, it's an extremely good question. And I'd like to say that 50 number is quite understated. Last time I checked, we were sitting around 130 odd vendors. So I'd say the market space is pretty big, or the market is pretty big. When you look at all these ones, and at CMC we've had I'd say the opportunity and the sort of being very fortunate to work with a whole bunch of these big vendors being in our space. And I think if what would make them stand out, I think the adoption or integration of 5G network slicing into their offerings or their solutions would definitely be something that'll help them stand out. I mean, 5G network slicing comes with a whole bunch of really interesting new thought around networks and how we use them, especially in the IoT space. So I think as SD-WANs evolve, the guys that are going to adopt this kind of technology to provide sort of layered services for different tenants, and SLAs based on those network slices, I think that's definitely a standout feature in the future. There's quite a lot of problems, with networks in general, congestion at the moment, people working from home. And I think that's the glaring one that's sitting in front of everybody's faces at the moment, is how do we deal with this, work from home culture and explosion that's just happened. And I think SD-WAN sort of technologies and offerings they've touched on the work from home sort of idea, but not necessarily been focused on it. So one of the main problems that we need to address is, and I know we are addressing in the greater scheme of things, is work from home and how SD-WANs can help leverage this and deal with the remote worker in a security from a security perspective, as well as connectivity. And then also making it a lot more cost effective. At the moment, it's still not as cost effective as it should be to have SD-WAN sort of deployed to remote workers. But I think if we can solve that problem in terms of a light client of some form, we'll definitely address, at least from my point of view, one of the main, problems that we have.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Nico, for those fascinating observations. So for more insights on how CMC Networks is leveraging SD-WAN, please do take a look at their website. There's some very interesting material there. And thanks for watching this podcast. And please look out for more 10-minute expert insights brought to you by ENEA.